what is competing well? How do we compete well? And so I look at the definition. When you boil it all down, people say like, oh, you got to be in the mode. You got to sharpen up. You got to do all these other things. At the end of the day, competing well is throwing far on command. Throwing far on command. So if you say like, this is the 6th round, I have to throw a better throw, you're doing that on command. If it's your first throw, you're like, hey, I just need to make sure I get a mark in, but it's still far. That's what competing well boils down into. You have to throw far on command. I'm going to say it over and over and over again. I'm going to say far, okay. Far should only mean like 3% better than you're training consistently. 3% better than what you're consistently training at. So if you're an 18-meter shot putter, that means half a meter. If you're consistently training somewhere near 18 meters, we want to see 1850. If you're throwing the hammer 78 meters, that can be up to 2 meters. We want to be somewhere in that 3% better than what we train at. And that's where I say your preparation is key to this stuff. Now, if you have a mark and there's some times where like there's some physical limitations, you might have to get up for a good practice, and then you're down for a bit. We want to have the ups be what we consider consistent. So if you're competing a lot, if there's some aspects here to say like, hey, you're a shot putter, I can't throw hard or consistently far every day, that's fine. But when you are up, what is your consistently mark? Can we compete about 3% better than what we consistently train at when we're feeling pretty good? And so if that's the definition, we're not throwing for these massive, 10% jumps on what we're training. Because if you go in there trying to do that stuff, you're going to have a bad time. You have to throw within yourself. And that's what we'll talk about. Like, you want to throw far for you. If it's 3% better, throw far for you at will. We can spread it to 1 out of 3. We got to compete far 1 out of 3. But ideally, it's like, hey, this one is going to be good. This next throw will be good. And then you're a great competitor. And so I start with preparation. So if you're saying I got to prepare myself to throw X distance in a comp, so there's a mental component to that. You have to believe that you're able to do these things. So it starts with belief. You have to believe that you're capable of throwing X. And if you don't have that, nothing else matters. If you don't believe that it's possible, then what are we doing? So somebody can say like, well, I don't believe I can throw the world record. That's fine right now, like, because you're not in shape to do that yet. But if you want to get to the next step, you have to believe that you can make those adaptations, you can make those changes to do it. So we start with the belief. Believe that you can do the next step. Believe that you can take the next step forward. So you got to start there in our preparation. The second we'll say is the physical. And I say physical, it's like, are we healthy? Are we able to put through the reps, the rigors? Do we have the baseline strength? Are we working on the special strengths of somebody who is capable of doing these things? And this is where it's good to have a telescope. What do other people do? What does it appear like other people do who are achieving the next step for me? Do I have those physical abilities? Can I work on that range? Can I take the X number of throws? Can I throw, a certain implement, let's say a heavy implement? Can I throw that relevantly? So we're going to look at those physical things. And then the final thing that we got to be focused on after those two are set, so we have the mental and we have the physical ability to do the work. Then we need to stay focused on the technical. And we'll maybe dive into more of the technique, but technique it's about force application. We have to consistently apply force to our implements well. It's not just going hard. We have to apply force efficiently. There's no wasted movement. We want to feel a consistent motion of force onto our implement. That is technique. The second component of that is balance. So if you're a shot putter and you're in the middle, you got to have weight on your right leg at the right time and your left leg at the correct time. You have to balance those weight distribution in order to apply force well. So we're pushing out of the back well, we're pushing, in the middle, we're weight over the right, we're applying force well, and we're on balance. We need to keep those two things in mind. if we want to have good technique under fire, we need to be doing this consistently well. We need to have the good reps where we are applying force well and we're on balance. Those reps need to supersede the bad reps. We need to be feeling this more and more often. Now we're preparing well. So think back, how well have I been preparing for the last week? How well have I been preparing for the last 2 weeks, the last month? Do I have the mental ability? Do I believe that I'm capable of throwing X far? Am I physically capable of that? And this is always something that's like, hey, am I coming back from an injury or whatever? Or maybe I've been sick or something like that. Your body remembers if you believe that you can do it. Your body will find a way to adapt if you believe that you can do it. And so most injuries in our sport, or most illnesses or whatever, it takes away the mental. It's the hardest part is the mental aspect of it. But if you can get to that point, it's like, hey, I just need X amount of time to get my physicality. I need to get my reps up. I need to get my quality up and the physical aspects of it. When it comes to prepping technically, it's better to throw well and apply force efficiently, stay on balance, do things well before you throw far. You don't need to throw far to guarantee that you're going to hit a goal distance. You need to throw consistently well so that you're ready when your body state comes up in a peak state or in a big competition. So that's where we're going to feel well. That's where our preparation needs to find that peak form, that peak balance of all the mental, physical, and technical preparation that we're doing. So now that we've prepared well, now we need to come to the comp day, and this comes into our training too. If you throw far in training, it's likely not in a comp scenario. So our intensity is down in training. It always is down. You can't throw it 100% all day, every day. It's just physically impossible. You get to a meet and you might be close to 100% intensity. Those who just try hard and throw it 100% never really execute. We need to stay at an intensity that still is functional. That changes based on the event, your training age, things like that. But usually 80 to 90% is the most we want to actively think of. That's the intensity we're trying to apply to these reps. This is where a lot of times people get a clap going and like mess it up because they push beyond that bubble. They burst the bubble of what their technique can handle. We're all physically capable of blowing through things and recruiting additional muscles and doing things that take us away. We're trying to apply force to the implement. You have to stay at an intensity that allows you to do that. Think of like failing in a bench press. You start to recruit different muscles because the main workers are failing. You don't want to get yourself into a scenario when you're competing that the intensity is so high that you're starting to recruit other muscles. That's where you're staying relaxed or poised and trusting, like, I need to stay at a good intensity regardless of the scenario. If you're feeling like, oh, like everybody's up and I want to follow suit, you got to execute. You got to stay at the right intensity so that you can execute your throw. So I'll dive into this maybe a little bit more when I talk about John Powell and things I learned from him. But he was big on 7/8 speed. Throw or compete at 7/8 speed, 7/8 intensity, which is 92.5%, right, or something like that. It's not 100%. There's still an eighth of effort left for your adrenaline to take over the rest. Do not throw at full intensity. That's a rookie mistake. We don't want to fall into that trap. The second thing here is to have poise. Warm-ups might not go well. You might miss something. You might miss it off your hand. You might pull back. You might slip. You might hit the cage. You have to keep poise. There's one thing that will ruin a comp faster than anything else is when you start to let yourself get out of the zone. You lose your poise. You have to maintain poise. You have to anticipate things won't go well. There's some things that will not be ideal, but you are adaptable. You keep your poise. It's like, oh, okay, I messed up. I fouled my warm up, or I only had X amount of time. I didn't get my full routine in. You're like, that's fine. I can adapt. I can keep my poise. My preparation has prepared me over to be ready for this. And if your preparation has been good and it's leading you into this, nothing will get you out of sorts unless you let it on the day. Or if you start doubting yourself, you're like, hey, I didn't prepare well enough, or I had a bad night, or whatever. I've been doing this long enough. People who are actually truly prepared don't let comps get out of them. There's some hardships that are real or whatever, and we posture things, but at the end of the day, if your preparation is intact, you will throw well. So that's why I say it all comes back to your preparation. But I've seen people very well prepared who lose their poise, who second guess what they did, and they don't believe that their preparation was adequate. And that is unfortunately a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't believe in what you did then, and you don't believe that you can do it. You've now taken yourself out. You've had stage fright on the day. We want to prevent this at all costs. Keep your poise. Doing a bad meet or having a bad performance is not fatal. You'll get more opportunities if you choose to. You want to make sure that you're keeping your poise and you're doing the best you can in the circumstances you have. And the last thing I want to touch on, you might have done everything well. You might have, say, lost your poise for a little bit. Sometimes meets can go sideways. Something can happen. You might get an injury at that point. You might have something that has happened. Regardless, the only throw that matters is the next throw. You can have a bad turn, you can have a bad trials, and then you get into finals. You have to stay focused on the way that you execute good throws. It's a motor program that you can visualize in your head. You've taken a lot of throws. You need to put yourself in a bubble. If things are going sideways, put yourself in the bubble, get into your happy place, execute the good throws in your mind over and over and over and over again. Stay focused on your task. You can get back in the zone in a limited amount of time if you just stay into it. The counter to this, like, if I think too hard or whatever, like I'm not loose, that's separate from flow state. Flow state is all of the above. You are loose, but you're also focused. It's a balance between the two. Most of the time when people have a meet go sideways, something happened, weather happened, they're just, the implement just isn't going far. You can get more out of yourself by just trusting your preparation, trusting your motion, trusting your technique. And you can do that, like in most circumstances, when it's a fast comp or whatever, you have time to take that moment and cocoon yourself, bubble yourself up, think of those things, rehearse it a little bit to the side. I've seen miraculous things. I've seen people fall in a comp throw, and then I see them go to the bubble, and they go in there and they stay in their craft. They stay into it because they know, like, hey, I still got more reps. I got to make sure I get the most out of this. I got to execute my technique. I got to trust all that I do to execute a good throw. And I get in there and I still have the same opportunity I had first round. I have that same opportunity if I have more throws. Just stay in that realm. Stay in there. Try to get back into flow state. There's nothing stopping you other than your own psyche. So don't let those things happen to you. Stay in your own realm. Stay in your own belief system, and you can come out of a bad comp and actually have something positive to show for it. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully this gives some food for thought. Maybe there's something you can sharpen up. And I hope that we all throw well when it comes to our big meets.